But let me begin like this. As a historian, I want to recall some history of NDP-1. The NDP-1, when NDP-1 was being launched, Ministry of Finance invited the director or somebody of Economic Commission for Africa, then the late Professor Adebayo Adedeji. I don't know how many of you were there. Me, I'm historical. I am historical. I was there. I had been invited. I attended. And I want to recall his remarks. He did say that the report, sorry, the plan was a good plan. And he expected it to be a good plan because it was prepared by good technocrats. But he was skeptical whether this plan would be implemented. And his worry was what he called in your patrimonialism or patronage. He said it is one thing to have a good plan, it is another to execute it. And one of the challenges of executing a plan is political patronage. From even what I have heard since this morning being presented, the presentations were more technical. And they pointed out very many challenges. And in my opinion, and that of Adedeji, is that, yes, they are technical challenges, but most of the challenges are political. Political challenges. And yet, I don't think they have been adequately addressed. So, we have to look at the state. The state is very important. Why there is a difference between the development process of Africa and that of Southeast Asia is not so much even of democracy per se, it is so much of the strengths of the state and the weakness of the state. So we have had the weakness of the state in Africa since independence and also Latin America. And it has been described by different writers and authors, different parasitic state, lame state, overbloated state, patrimonial state, weak state, corrupt state, fragile state, name them. How can development plans be implemented under such circumstances and context? So we need to have a political context of this plan if it will have to be implemented. And I think it is somehow lacking in these plans to look at the weakness of the states. Here in Uganda, we are talking about ghosts. Ghost teachers, ghost pensioners, ghost soldiers, ghost nurses, ghost midwives, ghost land titles, ghost health centers, ghost etc. How can you have a plan implemented when you are implementing alongside ghosts? And I don't see the plans addressing ghosts. How do we exorcise these ghosts? By prayers? I'm afraid we have to strengthen the state. If we have to strengthen regulations, the World Bank, IMF in 1980s, 1990s, identified the problem of African failure to implement policies, development policies, as economic policy distortion. We want to submit that there is political policy distortions. Public administration is very large. This National Planning Authority has been giving recommendations that please stop expanding districts, cities, municipalities, etc. to reduce on public expenditure. But the government has continued to expand, isn't it? I sometimes joke that the National Planning Authority is an authority without authority. You have intellectual authority, but you have no implementation policy, and that's why there is implementation deficit, which stems not because of the weaknesses of technical capacity, which can also be, but political issues. So public service recruitment, because these policies have to be implemented by the public servants. Now, unless you have meritocracy, why Singapore or Thailand or Hong Kong or South Korea have developed? Because they base their recruitment on technical capacity, but not on who is who. Mwana wani, mwana wa gundi. Unless we recruit meritocracy, you will have better policies. Director, please, you can go on, have sleepless nights, come up with good policies, as long as the policy implementers are recruited based on political patronage. You will come back here to tell us all those lamentations without the book of lamentations. Corruption, part of political patronage. And here we are talking about both bureaucratic corruption and political corruption. Political corruption, the abuse of public office for political support, has bedeviled Uganda and Africa generally since independence, if you want history. You start parastatals, you recruit based on not technical know-how, but on how that person sings and sings more loudly to you. What do you expect next time? Because you cannot discipline such a person because he will take away the votes. So abuse of public office without for political support. Lastly, because I don't think I have time, I have not had research and development highlighted. Research and development gives higher returns in development. It has been proven everywhere. Where do we have research and development well planned and well resourced in Uganda and the whole of Africa to implement this development plan? I have not had it highlighted, and I think it should be highlighted. Research, development, and innovations. We need to have innovation hubs, innovation centers, well resourced, so that we can move forward based on knowledge. We are living in the knowledge economy. We are no longer in the other economies. We are in the knowledge economy, and we have to move there alongside other practices. The question of instability in the Great Lakes region generally, it's not only Congo. There is fire in Sudan and South Sudan and Somalia and Ethiopia. And I don't know where the fire will be next. You heard the chairperson of National Development Authority saying Uganda is a wonderful country. I guess she meant that it has good climate, natural resources, soils, but I think she didn't mean that Uganda is good in terms of tear gas, in terms of duka, in terms of people being shot. And we don't know, we don't have reports as why they are shot dead. So the question of governance, the question of an effective state is very pertinent. So where did these problems come from? The source of these problems has not been addressed because those who have tried to resolve the conflicts and bring peace and stability in the region have concentrated on military causes of the conflicts or the military aspects of the conflicts. Can we also look at the non-military aspects of the conflicts? People talked about inequality. If you don't address inequality, like in Uganda, look at the poverty map in Uganda. There are certain regions which are, whose poverty levels are, is it 68%, 60%, and others are already in middle income. Others are not yet even around the middle poverty. Others are in middle income. We have to address the question of distribution of resources and distribution of power. That is the source of conflicts. But when you tell people, sometimes they say you don't have a correct line. We have to look at the fundamental causes, sources of conflicts, and strengthen the state in Africa. The state is weak. Some people, when we say the state is weak, they say, but like in Uganda, they say, but we have just cropped the NUP and they have been brought down. No, we are talking about a state that can avoid ghosts, a state that can make sure that regulations are followed, a state that implements policies. Why do we have implementation deficit? Is because the state is not strong. So when you go to Congo, our neighbor there, from the time of German rule, not German, actually even before Belgian rule, there was Leopold. Congo was ruled by a person just who never stepped there even. And then you had the Belgians, and then you had the Mobutus, the Kabilas, and whoever is there today. There is a problem of state weakness, which we need to look at. Our friends from UNDP, your programs are normally technical. They are technicized. Even this sustainable development goals is technicized. It will not work like the other one of Millennium Development Goals unless we address the question of politics. The politics of development and building viable, effective states in the region. So when we are talking about resolving conflicts, we should also look beyond the state officials. Why can't I or Muhumuza or anybody here be invited also to participate in these talks about the Congo? Because the sources of the problems there are not necessarily military. The military come in. Actually, it wasn't the situation at times. We have to address the sources of the problems. And finally, I want to say we are in East African community. I have a problem with the East African community. By the way, I'm a participant, or I am trying to be, to have impact in the East African community. I have been complaining that about 13 years ago, the technocrats of the East African community, the Secretariat, drafted a good governance protocol. But the Council of Ministers and the Summit of the Presidents has refused to effect that good governance protocol. They shelved it, I think deliberately. Why? Because the good governance protocol, if it is put in place and it can be used by the citizens to put the East African community leadership to account. But they shelved it. So we need good governance. We need a good governance framework at the regional level, and we see how to implement it in order to avoid this inequality. Inequality of resources and inequality of power is at the heart of poor governance, weak states, which in turn leads to policy implementation deficit. I end up by giving you an example. I was told by my colleague who was in government, he's an old man in the 1960s, that Singapore, this country which is almost becoming a first world, came here, technocrats, civil servants came here in Uganda in 1960s to benchmark our public service, our civil service in Uganda, meaning it was good. Where is Singapore? Where are we? What is the problem? The problem lies in a weak state. We have to strengthen states, nation states. We don't have nation states. Africa and Latin America. The exceptionalism of Southeast Asia is not necessarily a democracy. It is because their states are strong. Policy implementation deficit is the problem of state weakness. I want to repeat, we have to strengthen states. Not this capacity of training people, getting masters and PhDs and diplomas and whatever. We are talking about building a nation state. And our partners, these global partners, when they are funding us, they avoid that. They shy away from state building and nation building. We are not at the level of Europe. Those are states. They have already created nation states. Their problems are not our problems. Our problems lie in weak nation states. We are still geographic expressions. We are not nation states in the region. That is why today there is a problem here. The other day is a problem here. The other one is there. Chairman of National Development, National Planning Authority. You are saying Uganda is a wonderful country. It is a wonderful, yes, in natural resources, but it's not yet wonderful in terms of state capacity, state governance, and nation state building. I thank you.